Hey everybody, it's Sunday night and it just occurred to me that I don't even remember the last time I did an around the world update here, so we're going to go ahead and do a spur of the moment one. Hopefully I won't skip over anything important in any of the tanks. I've had a busy week as far as the fish room goes, so we'll try to get to everything. 29-gallon miscellaneous tank. As usual, nothing really to report in this tank. I did have a buddy of mine over last night, and we sort of got into keeping fish together at the same time, and this is one of my earliest tanks, and he and I were just reminiscing about how fascinated we were back in the early days when we were just beginning to keep fish, watching this tank and all of the various loaches in the bottom and so on and so forth. A lot of the fish in this tank are some of my older fish. Even a few of those neons in there are probably 3 or 4 years old now. So just a little trip down memory lane for me personally, but other than that, nothing really to speak of in this tank. But since we're starting the video, we might as well have a look at it at least for a few moments, get an idea of what the tank itself looks like. I'm still having trouble with the plants. You can see up here that temple plant has been uprooted again. Well, it never really rooted in, but it's been knocked loose. The other one just died altogether. So I might cut some Java fern out of another one of my tanks. Java fern's easy enough to grow, and if I just tuck it in between some of the rocks, it might do okay. You can see I've got a few little pieces tucked in there now that aren't doing very much, but you never know. If I cut a bigger, healthier piece out of another tank and put it in there, we might get something happening. Otherwise, nothing really going on in the 29 miscellaneous, so we will move on here to my Gourami tank. Not a lot going on in the Gourami tank as far as I can think of. I haven't really done much in there this week other than a water change. I did get in and remove a lot of the, what's it called over there on the right? That red tiger lotus, that stuff. A lot of the fronds or pads almost, whatever you want to call them, the foliage had made it to the surface and were actually floating and acting as, like lily pads. So, got in there, cut a lot of that back, wiped the glass down, which never really takes much in this tank because it doesn't get a lot of light on it, and I just don't get a lot of growth on the glass. I did see a few more guppy babies, so apparently the guppy in there, the female guppy in there, is still dropping babies from time to time. I still have all 6 ballast sharks, and I never did see any issue breaking out with the ick that I thought may have been transferred into this tank from those ballast sharks. So I never had any issues with that. I did eventually lose my gold gourami, and so now we're down to my moonlight gourami, and that's it. Otherwise, nothing really going on in this tank. My angelfish tank doesn't have much going on in here either. I've had a busy week in some tanks, and other tanks have been just completely ignored. This is one of the tanks that nothing has happened in the last week or so in this tank at all. I haven't really had any spawning behavior. I've probably shot some video here and there, but other than that, nothing really to speak of. This is just my 55-gallon angelfish tank. I've got the 3 angelfish, the shark, Serpent tetras. I do have a female guppy in here, although I have not seen any more babies from that one. I would imagine any babies from that one would not last very long in this tank anyway, so it's possible she's still in there dropping babies from time to time. They just never last long enough for me to see them. I will note, now that I'm thinking about it, I know if I stood here long enough I'd think of something. My Chinese algae eater, the other day I noticed it was trying to attach to my angelfish again, and it kind of occurred to me that it had been a while since I had thrown any shrimp pellets in there. So I spent a couple days putting shrimp pellets in along with the algae wafers, and that behavior stopped. So that's something to pay attention to. If you do have a Chinese algae eater, they are known for attaching to the sides of fish, especially sort of flat-bodied fish like angelfish or gouramis. But they only do that if they're protein deprived. They're not strictly algae eaters. They do need protein in their diet, and if they're not getting enough, they will try to eat the slime coat off the fish, and that's why they're doing that. If you provide them with some protein, like in my case, I put shrimp pellets in there, they get the protein they need, and they immediately stop the behavior where they're trying to get to the slime coat of the fish. I don't even see the algae eater in there now. Now that I've lost some fish in this tank, some bottom dwellers, the catfish and my little chronocycla, now that they're gone, there's not a lot of competing space, competition for the space, I should say, in the bottom of the tank, and that algae eater is able to just get down in those caves and just lay low. Whenever I come in the room, it's still pretty shy and reclusive fish, even though it's big and bold at the same time. Strange fish. Definitely on my list of I won't buy that one again. One of these days I will get around to shooting some of those I won't buy that fish again videos. Moving on to my black ghost knife fish. There he is. My Opaline Gourami. Finally took him out of quarantine. We'll get to the quarantine tank here in a little while. But I decided that I did not trust this one in my gourami tank. He's a killer. He's aggressive. He's male. And I just didn't want to see him go into my gourami tank and then wind up causing issues or possibly even killing my moonlight gourami as it gets older. So I decided I'm willing to take the risk of putting it in a tank with a couple of tiger barbs. So far, I've not seen any issue whatsoever. The tiger barbs actually seem a little afraid of the gourami, as I was kind of hoping. The gourami is actually going to be more aggressive than the barbs, and they're just going to kind of steer clear of the gourami. And so far, my only concern would be the ventral fins, the modified ventral fins that the fish use more like feelers than fins. And they are really important for gouramis. They really do use them like feelers. And you're taking away one of their senses if you cut them off. Or if you allow fish to nip those feeler fins off, it's not good for the gourami at all. So far it's been in there for, today is the third day, and it has done nothing but look gorgeous. I haven't seen any issue with other fish bothering it. I haven't seen issues with it really bothering other fish in any meaningful way. And he just looks fantastic in there. So I'm really happy with that decision so far. You never know, this could change as time goes on. Otherwise, we need to get in here once again and do some more work on clearing out the cyanobacteria. I'm forever fighting that stuff. I had somebody comment today. I'm actually working on getting the cyanobacteria out of my wife's tank up in her room. This is one of those tanks where I get it pretty heavily if I don't treat with the blue-green slime stain remover, the Ultralife product. And it takes a while for it to come back really thorough like this. If I use the blue-green slime stain remover and do a good double dose and really knock the cyanobacteria back in this tank, I generally get a few months before it really starts getting noticeable. And then for a few more months, I'm able to maintain it simply by doing water changes with a siphon, and I just sort of remove it manually and keep it in check. And then from time to time, it just starts getting bad enough that I'm getting tired of it being in there, and it's time to really hit it with a good dose of medication. And you can see it's growing on the filter intakes, and I've got sheets of it sort of growing on the Java fern back there, big mats of it floating around. So it's time once again to get in here with the blue-green slime stain remover and just do a simple 2 to 4 day treatment with an air stone and so on and so forth. Again, no big deal. I don't mind doing it from time to time. I just kind of consider it part of my regular old tank maintenance. I've discussed the cyanobacteria before. I'm not going to get into it again. I'll never get rid of it. I've got it in too many of my tanks. It's just too difficult of a organism to really eradicate fully. And with all my different tanks and all the swapping around and switching around I do, I'll just never get on top of it completely. And that's why I never really stress out about trying to. It's just something I deal with. So moving on to another tank that is in a bad way right now. This is my native tank, and I've got an outbreak of Columnaris in this tank. I'm almost positive that's what it is. And now that I'm looking at my smallmouth bass that just swam up to the glass and back, it seems to be what I'll say breathing, rapid respiration, and that's a bad sign. And looking at my cichlid here, I can see a couple of little white dots on its forehead. I don't know if that would be an infection or not, but we'll have to wait and see. But you can see all this sort of white fuzz on the glass. I've lost, I don't even know, I've lost over 20 fish in this tank in the last couple of days. You can see sort of this white scum developing on my power head. That is because I'm treating this tank right now with an antibiotic, and it's taking its toll. You can see how gross all the stuff on the glass is. I'm not going to get into a big discussion about it. I got a ton of stuff going on in this tank. If you want, I already attached a card there for the native tank. You can go ahead and just click on that, and you can get the playlist for this tank, and you can get all the gory details and all the stuff that's been going on in this tank. But suffice it to say, until I get on top of this outbreak, I'm not going to be doing any swapping of anything, and no dip nets going anywhere, and nothing. This tank is just going to be left alone. I'm going to continue the antibiotic treatment for the full week. Since I've started it, I'm going to go ahead and finish it, and hopefully that will eradicate the problem in this tank. If not, I'm not overly concerned about the last few remaining animals in this tank. I can simply get rid of them. The Mayan cichlid, I don't have a place to get rid of per se, but I can do something with the cichlid. I can quarantine that cichlid and treat it in a small tank or something if need be. But if worst case scenario, I can strip this tank down, remove all the animals from it, and then just blast it with hydrogen peroxide, or just run really hot water through it for a few hours, or something. I can do something to kill off that bacteria that's in this tank, but it may come to that. It may come to the actual, have to start over. Depends on if I can kill this stuff or not. It's really, really bad bacteria. You do not want to get this in your tank. It spreads fast and it kills fast. So again, that's what's been going on largely in this tank this week. So, not good. Anyway, moving on. Like I said, if you want any more details, you can check out the playlist and see all the gory details on that tank. My snail tank here, nothing really to speak of. It's simply my snail tank. No changes, no nothing. I haven't done a water change even on that tank, and I can't even remember when, months and months. My T-bar and gudgeon tank can truly be called my T-bar and gudgeon tank now. That's really all that's left in there. The rubber lip pleco is still left in there, but I took all of the rainbowfish out and I put them in my 125, and they look fantastic. I also forgot to mention that I took the tilapia out of the native tank we were just looking at, and I put that in my 125 too. And I think I did it after I infected my tank, so there is the possibility that I cross-contaminated my 125, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. We haven't got there yet. This tank is now just basically the T-bar here to the right, and the gudgeon just kind of lying on the plants there to the left. The gudgeon just spends a lot of time doing that now, just sort of hanging out, laying on top of the leaves. That's what they do in the wild. They would just lay there waiting for any fish to innocently swim up above them, and then that would be the last time that fish ever swam anywhere, because it would be gone. Voracious predators, huge mouths on them. So this tank is now very different feeling, and I don't know what's going to happen to it, or, honestly, I'm not really worried about it at the moment. We're just going to kind of let it ride like this, and it's cool enough as it is. I love my little T-bar in there. It's beautiful, beautiful fish, and I'm just not too worried about mixing it up with this tank again. We're just going to leave it alone. I got the rest of the summer to tinker around with my other tanks and the native tank, and then come next autumn or winter, I'll be spending a lot more time down here, and I'll be a lot more bored, and there's a lot more chances we'll get something different going on in this tank. So moving on to my 125 gallon. There's some of the rainbow fish. They have congregated more or less with the congos in there. They mix very well. Try to walk around some of the stuff. I still haven't cleaned up the floor in this room. So there's the tilapia. And there's a better look at some of the rainbows swimming around. I'm just stoked on this tank now. I love it. I think the rainbows in there look amazing, and I cannot stress enough how happy I am with this tilapia. He's just awesome in this tank. His colors work, his demeanor works, the shape, size, everything about this tilapia in this tank is just fantastic. He's gorgeous. So I'm crossing my fingers that it will sort of, the growth rate will slow down. This isn't even a year old yet. I got it at about the size of a nickel, and it's a pretty beefy fish already, and it's not even a year old. So we'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping it turns out to be on the smaller end for what the tilapia can get up to. I believe they can get up to about 13 inches, but just because that's the maximum size of a fish doesn't mean they're going to reach the maximum size. The idea that a fish will only grow to the size of the tank it's in is a complete myth. That's absolute rubbish, but putting fish in fish tanks does tend to stunt their growth to some degree. So while this tilapia would still be way too big for a 20 or 30 or 40 gallon tank, there's nothing you can do to force it to be that small. It might stunt a little bit and might not get quite to the whole 13 inches. And even at that, it may take years before it gets to the point where it's 8 or 9, and getting too big for me and I need to move it out of this tank. So basically, we've got hopefully at least a few more years of enjoying this tilapia, which makes me really happy. I also wanted to do this. I forgot the other day, I've got an LED on the front of this tank that I never turn on because it just gives me algae on the glass. But when I do turn it on, if I can find the switch down here, it really, really makes the colors on these fish pop. And the rainbow fish, when they swim into the front of the tank, there you go, there's one now. They look fantastic. So I should have turned that on before I got this video started, just so that it would have been on when we saw the tank originally. But as I said, this was a very spur of the moment. I was just kind of walking past and I thought, you know what, I haven't done a Around the World update in a while, so let's go do it. So there you are. If you're subscribed, you won't miss any of the updates I do, and I have a feeling I'm going to be shooting a lot of video of this tilapia here. I'm just in love with this tilapia in this tank. I can't stop staring at it. So there will probably be plenty of video coming up, and with the light on, if I remember, I can come in here and get some better video with everybody swimming right underneath of that really good quality LED there. Excuse me. So tearing ourselves away because I can't think of anything else going on with this tank. Again, if I didn't mention already, there is a possibility I contaminated this tank when I brought the tilapia over, and I will be keeping a very close eye on the inhabitants of this tank now to make sure that everybody is alright and I don't see any outbreaks of any kind of bacterial growth or little white spots or anything amiss in this tank, because that would be tragic. Oh, that would be tragic if I lost all the fish in this tank. Anyway, I don't even want to think about that. Moving on to my brackish tank. Nothing really to speak of in here. I haven't shot any video this week. I haven't done any water changes. I haven't really done anything. You can see how dirty the glass is. Butterbean's up here swimming around in the corner. You can see by his narrow, skinny little belly there that he hasn't eaten yet today. So after this video, I'll be going around making my feeding rounds and everybody will get their dinner. Butterbean will be very happy for that. He does not like going without his dinner. Can't really think of anything else to speak of in this tank. Haven't lost any fish, haven't done anything. Like I said, I haven't done any water changes, haven't done anything on this tank. This is just my brackish tank with my figure 8 puffer. I've got some bumblebee gobies and 2 male Endler's guppies in here. My quarantine tank does have something new. We took the Opaline Gourami out, as we already saw. That's now in my black ghost knifefish tank, and in place of it I put 6 silver hatchet fish. They've been in there for 2 days now, and as far as I can tell, all 6 of them are still alive as of about 2 hours ago when I counted they were.
and all 6 of my neons are alive. So unusually, all of my neons have survived for a few days coming home from the big chain pet store, and if that happens, they usually are fine. If it's just getting them for that first week, if they survive, then they're usually good to go. Same with the hatchetfish. Part of it has to do with my water, part of it has to do with the genetics that you get from these big chain stores. You know, the breeders that breed the neons, the genetics in them is not very good, and the conditions they're kept in is not very good. So again, if they make it past the first week or so, you're usually good to go with your neons, but it's not uncommon for them not to make it past the first week either. So far so good. We've had them in here for 3 days, and I have not lost a single neon or a single hatchetfish. So hopefully in another few weeks they'll be going into their new homes here in the fish room. So last but certainly not least is my red-clawed crab tank. The only things I really want to talk about in this tank is the fact that I really need to get in there and do some maintenance on it, and I want to shoot some video about that. If you see the waterfall on the right, it's running really low. Not a lot of water flowing anymore, so that indicates that the filter needs to be changed. And probably it wouldn't hurt to get in there and actually rinse the inside of the filter out. The actual impeller and the inside of the plumbing and everything gets gunked up after a while, so it probably wouldn't hurt to do that. And likewise, you can see the waterfall on the left has such a low flow of water right now. That too needs a little bit of maintenance done in there. There's one of my little ghost shrimp, if you can see it through the scum on the glass. The other thing I wanted to point out in here, I've noticed that I'm starting to see little guppy babies again, little Endler's babies. So all of those little babies that were in here have now matured to the point where I've got more babies again. So the cycle has begun all over. And I got a friend that wants some Endlers for their tank just to color it up a little bit. So I'm going to get in there when I do my maintenance, and I'm going to scoop a bunch of them out. I will try to isolate the females as well. I'll put the females in different tanks, and then I can give him the brightly colored males that he likes, and then I can keep the rest, and hopefully we'll stop my rampant spread of live bearers because I've got too many of them already. So look forward to that. I will be doing some video on this tank here very soon. I've kind of been neglecting this tank for a while. The glass needs to be cleaned. It desperately needs a water change, along with my native tank. I mean my brackish tank. Sorry, I get my tank confused here. And when I do the one, I usually do the other because they both take brackish water. Not quite the same salinity or specific gravity, but close enough that I do the same batch of water when I do my water changes. At any rate, as I said, make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss any of that stuff. So here we are back to the beginning. I hope I covered everything. Probably not, but there's always next week and another Round the World update coming soon. So again, if you're subscribed, you won't miss any of that stuff. Don't forget, this is my 29-gallon miscellaneous. This is where we always start and end. So thanks again for watching this one, and I'll see you real soon in the next one.